Hello, my name is Cody. Welcome to the Unifying Field podcast. I am so glad you're here. I've started incorporating other people's stories into this show, and I've talked about in the past how our stories have the ability to create heaven or hell on earth for us and the people we interact with. That is, if we attach to the stories our egos create, and that is absolutely true. We absolutely view the world through the lens of the stories we are attached to, good or bad. However, our stories are equally as powerful in inspiring others going through similar situations and inspiring them with the knowledge that, hey, it is possible to overcome this suffering, this pain. It shows others that it is possible to become free from the bondage of the mind and truly change our worlds for the better. And when we change our inner world, we now acquire the power to change the outer world. So, from the bottom of my heart, I am thankful you are here. Welcome to the Unifying Field. Well, today we have a special guest, and I should ask this before we start, but I keep messing this up. Like, how do you pronounce your last name?
Roccisano, Sara Roccisano.
I definitely would have messed that up. So, I'd like to introduce Sara Roccisano. Is that, did I say it right? Okay. Author of Stone Temple Passport, which you just said hasn't come out yet, but and also founder of Emboldened Adventures, what you're wearing the shirt for.
Yeah, swag.
So I guess we'll start with a little bit of background on yourself, like um, where you came from, like 'cause I know your book, or what little bit that I've looked into on that, you had a career that you built for yourself. Sounds like a successful career, and then all of a sudden you hung out with Mama Ayahuasca for a little bit. So let's start with more of the background to see where you came from.
20 plus years in New York City, working very high stress, high pressure sort of roles. And in one particular example was I was an investment banker on Wall Street, and I worked 10 plus years there and then moved on into the private equity space and then onward into the renewable energy field. So lots of pressure, as I mentioned. And you're in the matrix, man. Full-fledged. Bright lights, big city sort of intensity. And I lived that existence for over 20 plus years. Finally got out. I had the call to finally leave in 2022, and then finally was able to escape full-fledged 2024. And here I am now in nature in Connecticut. But yes, you're right. I did meet with Mama Ayahuasca, and for the first time, I worked with her out of the 10 times I've now since worked with her. Was in early 2020, 2020, I should say. I got the call back in 2019, late at the end of the year, and I was working in downtown Manhattan, really pretty much with that sort of in the material world, right? With the material items and the office and the cubicle and the subway and the concrete. And how my book will guide the reader, it's a 100% true story. I dared the universe. I thought I wasn't going to get laid off. We knew layoffs were around the corner. And I said to my friend who invited me out to the Amazon to work with ayahuasca with her, I said, if I get laid off, then I'll consider it, which I didn't think was going to happen. And then sure enough, within a week, I was laid off. And so my trip formulated in such a way where it was seamless and just undeniable in the sense that I have to do this. It's something I should look into, explore, and really be honest with myself if this is something I really want to go down the path of. Once you summon the genie, you can't put it back in the bottle. So I was already en route to Morocco, already having a planned a trip out there with a bachelorette party. And it just so happened that the time that my friend chose to get out to the Amazon was seamless. I would be returning home from Casablanca on a flight to JFK in the city, in New York City. And all I needed to do was take my bags and switch terminals and get on the flight to Peru. And that's how it worked. And I was there for 2.5 weeks, never touched a psychedelic prior to that. And then I added on the back end, a trip around South America and Bolivia, the Andes Mountains and working and learning about these ancient megalithic sites like Tiwanaku and Pumapuku as featured on Ancient Aliens. So all in all, that 5 week adventure prior to the world shutting down was quite profound. So much so it drove me to write a book and leave and really change my life in 2022 when I decided to walk away.
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like, and we hate it when we're going through it. You know, it seems like hard times are the catalyst for our growth. And yeah, during those moments, like, it's extremely painful. We like kick and scream and all this stuff. But after it's all said and done, like, everything that I've gone through has been a blessing in disguise, you know?
Absolutely. I look back now at the past 6 plus years, it's like, thank goodness this happened the way it did. And it wasn't easy. That 2022 moment of that surrender, was a pretty massive breaking point. I ended up getting a new job once I came back to the city and try to immerse myself back into the program again. And, just give it another go. I'm going to give it another shot, continue to weather the storm through coronavirus and everything else going down around me that just wasn't really working for me. And, it's like square peg round hole. You try to fit something, and when it's not working, it's not aligned, you got to listen. But sometimes you need the shake up and the wake up before you realize in hindsight that thank God that this was happening the way it did. And ever since then, I've been working with wisdom keepers and really exploring the depths of consciousness and spirituality, the intersection of the two, while we are in this massive, amazing ascension and awakening that's happening for the collective. So I'm very fortunate, I'm very grateful, and I'm here to tell the tale through these books that I'm writing. This is the first one out the gate, but it's part of a series, transformational series, 100% true story of me working around the world with wisdom keepers since working first with ayahuasca.
Very cool. I was going to ask you something. I can't remember what I was going to say, so I might come back to that. Um, I've never worked with ayahuasca myself. I've only done mushrooms a few times, and I wasn't on a spiritual journey whenever I partook in that, you know. And but I had an interesting experience with it. At least the first time. The second time was very bad, but the first time I had never experienced a calm mind where there's no thoughts dragging me around. And that was just on the like the come down or whatever from the trip. But I didn't know anything like that was possible, and it was short lived, and everything went back to normal. And it'd be years later before I would figure out how to maintain that. Um, but yeah, that's about my only experiences with psychedelics. You know.
Yeah, there are teachers for sure, and they're not for everybody. That it's almost as if they call you to work with them as the medicine they are and the guides that they are, and in the set and setting too is quite important.
Mm,
The Icaros when we worked with ayahuasca is the song of the plants that the Shipibo maestros and maestras sing in ceremony while the medicine is working. And so, in combination with the vibrational frequencies of the songs that the plants, have really wrote, they're the composer, if you will, and the combination of the land, right, the rainforest that you're in, with the medicine, with the spirit sort of coming and embodying the vine that is ayahuasca. That in itself is the sort of experience. So the mushrooms, are similar in certain respects. So you have to have respect and reverence, and also be in, I think, from since working with other plant modalities and medicine modalities, working with the mushroom in nature is always a great way to explore, as opposed to something that's artificial, for example, like concrete in a city, or something like, that's not in relation to Gaia. So I don't know. I can't guarantee. No one can guarantee what the medicine's about to show you,
mm,
but sometimes a bad trip, in hindsight, as we were just saying, turns out to be a good thing when you look back. They're blessings, and they're meant to put mirrors for you to see and really integrate and have perspective and be open to what the lessons are being shown to you.
Yeah, and I think bad trips are kind of like what we were just talking about with when we go through suffering and that kind of stuff, just in our regular life and not outside of a trip. It's during that it's a little bit terrifying, but afterwards, there's typically something to gain from that. And I bet, like,
Absolutely.
I absolutely bet that it'd be difficult to find a way to connect outside of what, like Central Park, I guess, and New York City, be able to connect with the earth, a little bit, but I'm sure it's still pretty noisy out there.
So my book goes into ceremony seven. I did seven ceremonies with ayahuasca. Ceremony seven was my most difficult one, and I take the reader through exactly what was going on in my brain and my essence. And it felt like I was having a mental breakdown, and I wasn't coming back from it. And ultimately, compassion and love helped break me free from it and help me get out of this sort of spiral, this sort of sweating and shaking and panic state that I was in. And um so yeah, like it can happen, it's possible. But also my book goes into me being back in New York, and where I did find the solace was the rivers, the East River. And the Hudson River, too, is another example. It's very powerful energy. But I lived closer to the East River. So, in addition to, as you mentioned, Central Park and other green places that are in New York, the river is always a very important place for me to connect with the land and be away from the fray and that nervous energy that's not serving.
Yeah, I've never been up there, but I can only imagine. It'd be a it'd be a lot to deal with. A city that never sleeps. Mm, I like to sleep. I like a little peace. um, yeah, my second time I tripped on mushrooms was horrible. It was fun for a little bit, and it was kind of an experiment. I went back to college after I left the Air Force, and I was kind of straight edge for most of my life. But then I was like, okay, I want to do something different. I want to try something different. And the second time I did it, I think it was about half an ounce that I ate. That was too much.
A
And
half of ounce is a hero's dose, isn't it? That's 0.5
oh yeah,
grams.
yeah, I
Or
couldn't.
I think maybe I don't know my measurements well, but yeah, it's like two packets, right? That's in hero dose land at that point.
It was I couldn't stay here. I,
Mm.
I fought very hard to stay here. I mean, I think I could handle it now where I'm at today, but back then it was just for the fun of it, and that definitely wasn't fun. So
You were by yourself?
no, I was with friends, but they weren't much
Mm.
helpful.
Oh. And usually you want to protect your container, for instance, sage, Palo Santos, nice music, just clearing the space and protecting. So that sometimes can help too. Pro tip.
And back then I thought that listening to psychedelic music was a great idea. It is not. Absolutely not. Stay away from the old 60s. I mean, unless you're like a psychonaut or whatever, you do it all the time, but that's going to make things
So no
kind of
going
wild.
to see Tool in the Sphere in Vegas.
Yeah, that'd be kind of rough.
Probably not. A little scary. But I find, if you turn on some shows on Netflix, like Moving Art, for example, Louis Schwartzberg, I actually had the pleasure of meeting him in New York. He's a filmmaker, and he did a series called Moving Art, which is extraordinary in terms of the camera work. It really zeroes in on like flowers that are blooming and the slow motion of like a snail, for example. And oh, it's just extraordinary. And he has drone work, and so that I found is extremely helpful as a tool background sort of aid. But he also did Fantastic Fungi, Paul Stamets's documentary.
Yeah.
So I would recommend Fantastic Fungi, Moving Art, anything like that has like a connection to nature and such reverence. And it does help. It's a really great companion when you're working with the mushroom in your apartment, for example.
that
Can't get to nature.
I'd really, yeah, just rather go out in nature once because now I would use it if I were to do it. It would definitely be more spiritual, not fun, but or maybe it's still
Yeah,
fun, but
take your shoes off, go barefoot, go, there's a beautiful area we go in Big Indian, New York in the Catskills. And it's so far removed in the sense of there's no cell phone service. And it is this like 8 acre land, plot of land that has all these very tall, like white pine trees and beautiful, I think it's a I forgot the name of the creek, but it's a river as well. It opens into a river, and you got the creek, you got the pines, you got, you're off grid, and it's definitely a beautiful place to work with the mushroom there. Completely, protected by this sort of realm.
that's awesome. So what was your background of your beliefs before ayahuasca?
I worked a lot with various spiritual teachers while I was in, this sort of world that I described prior in that career I was in. Every time I would lose my job, so a lot of where my kind of difficulties were job losses and sometimes being out of work for a very long period of time. I got laid off 3 different times, of which I was my only breadwinner, so I held down, the mortgage in Manhattan, and it was very difficult. But in those times of difficulty is where the spirituality would grow. And with my travels, and Bolden Adventures was my travel blog that I'm now turning into a encouragement platform that inspires personal, professional, and spiritual transformation. And there's lots of different programs that are coming with this in terms of encouraging travel and encouraging transformation, from within and exploration. And so that got me there over time with, the difficulties I've had and just the ability to run away a little bit through traveling. And so a combination of scuba diving around the world, traveling to these megalithic sites, on vacation, in addition to working with, let's say, past life regression facilitators and Reiki healers and other sort of earlier teachers that kind of came around in 2012, looking back on it. That shift, everyone said the world's coming to an end. The Mayan calendar, December 21, 2020, 2012. And I look back, I was writing this book, and I do give the reader a look as to the spiritual kind of unfolding that was going on without me even realizing it for so long. And yeah, looking back, it was 2012 that I think kind of shook me awake. I lived through the financial crisis of 2008. I was an investment banker at the time, covering the
Wow.
financial institutions group. So I had the front row seat with our clients, such as banks and insurance companies and the asset managers like BlackRock, and especially finance companies and financial technology companies such as the stock exchanges. So, I lived through that, watching the whole world collapse in that sense from a financial perspective. And I was still very much in the go mode. But it was 2012 that started to wake me up spiritually. And, looking back, it was just here and there starting to collect information and starting to feel out and learn and grow. And as I mentioned, when I'd get laid off, that's when the real spiritual work was happening. And so once ayahuasca called, by then it was 8 years in the making. And so I was ready to rock and roll. It was just another level of initiation and ascension, which I'm continuing to do now. But looking back, I'm grateful for it. I'm glad for it. It helped me. It's continuing to help me with my growth, so I can then help others as the way shower that I am, and the storyteller I am, and this now public speaker that I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know what to do in life, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Just pay attention to what is going on in your life. Because a lot of our, I believe a lot of our spiritual growth is like right in front of us and we don't realize it. So, like you said, if it, you had a successful career and all of this stuff, and you're probably pretty comfortable with where you were at that time. So, if nothing ever changes, with your situation, then you're not gonna be pushed into waking up and growing spiritually. So, yeah, just look around at your life, and you'll know what's trying to leave your life. You'll know You'll know exactly what you need to work on if you just pay attention. So,
That's right. Be here now, and everything is a blessing, even though it might not seem like it. Everything is a lesson that your, higher self is orchestrating. And then when you look back, life is lived forward, understood backwards, Søren Kierkegaard, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for that. And I'm in that period now of reflection. Obviously, during, it's like this sucks, and this is
yeah,
not
it's,
easy. And how come I feel like I'm the only one here? And very much victim mentality, very much like the universe is out to get me. But now I realize it's not. It's here to help, and you align with the field, the divine field. So the field has to give back what you put out. And so if you are being conditioned to be negative and think negatively and have that sort of victim mentality, oh woe is me, the world hates me, and here see another example of it, put me down and bringing me down. It's going to give you more of that because it's like a mirror. You smile, the mirror has to smile back. It's a law.
absolutely.
So if you change and heal from within, which is what the medicines are doing, it helps you to give perspective. It heal, grow. Where are these traumas? Where, can you be grateful? It's all about gratitude and raising your vibration and being in a state of happiness and authenticity, despite what the world around you is saying. You're not, don't be authentic, show up like this, conform, comply. But that's the ultimate hero's journey is no, I'm going to do what feels right for me, despite the odds, despite the naysayers, despite the pressure, despite being, a minority in this. And that's where the real courage happens. So once you now kind of uh, align with your sense of self, knowing no one can take this away from me, I know who I am, I know what my worth is, you start to see the field now reward you because you're now vibing higher. So the divine field now has to give you in positivity. So that's what manifestation really ultimately is alignment with the frequencies. So if you want to stay in a low vibe, you're going to see the low vibe around you, perpetuate.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the universe is trying to, it's purification. It's trying to get you to release things. And, during the moment, it feels awful. We lose relationships, friendships, and everything else. But it's making space for something better. And it reminds me of a quote from one of my favorite books, which goes, no matter how beautiful you have imagined this world or your life, I can't remember which one, no matter how beautiful you have imagined it, God has imagined it way better than you have. So be
That's
patient.
beautiful. Yes, be patient because it's much more beautiful than we can ever imagine. And that's the thing. Like one of my mantras is, I don't have to know how, I just have to ask, believe, and receive. Because our brain can't figure it out. There's too many
Mm-mm.
moving variables. There's too much of an infinite expansion. There's no way this puny little computer, meat computer, can figure it out. It's just impossible. It may have a sense of what's going on, but ultimately it's your higher power, and it's your higher power working with the divine field and your guides and everything else. And you say, you throw it up to the higher dimensions and say, okay, this is what I want, this is what I want to manifest, this is what I feel is good for me. It's a feeling, it's coming from your heart, not your brain. And it's almost like a knowing, it's a trust, it's because everything's in the now. There's no future or past. That's what Mama Ayahuasca showed me, and I go into my book about that as well. So if we're in the field of now always in its infinite expansion, um, you could just go, like a old phone, operator with like the
Mm-hmm.
plugs, and okay, well, I'll go here now and plug it into this part of the map, this part of the divine field. If I want, multi-million dollars, okay, put it here. Feel what that feels like. Know what comes with it. Own it. You're worthy of it. There's that, positive thinking. I'm worthy of this because the field has no choice but to give you abundance and align with you. It wants you to win. It doesn't want you to lose. Uh that's the programming. It wants to keep you disempowered. So if you feel like you're giving your gift, it's energies in alignment. Money comes as a result of flow. So if I want to now put that, phone cord into this particular area of the now, right? Be here now, Ram Dass.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can shift, and I will then surrender to that higher sort of wisdom that can figure out how to realign the quantum field to then deliver in the 3D. Okay, here it is. But it's not what you anticipated that your brain thought it was. It's something even more extraordinary
Yeah.
in a way you didn't even anticipate or imagine. And you're like, oh my God, it makes more sense now. Thank you for it happening this way. And I'm grateful.
Yeah, my journey has definitely had a lot of, uh, at least according to my ego, has been a lot of failure, and things that I've tried. But ultimately, I believe it was just trying to tell me, hey, that's not your path. That's not your path. That's not your path. Here's one that's a way better fit. And I don't know if this podcast is part of that, but it's definitely a lot more in that direction than anything else I've tried. And I love this way better because all the other stuff is just boring.
Yeah.
Conforming is boring. Like I can't fake it.
Can't fake it. You got to be authentic. That's it. So that's your passion, right? I don't know if you know of Bashar. He's all over the
Yeah,
internet
yeah.
now. And you got to follow your passion till you can't take it any further, right? That's it. And so when you're vibing, you're like, this is exciting. I'd rather do this than be in an office in a cubicle, be miserable, be working all-nighters and being reamed at by these jerks, like, I don't want to do that. Fuck that. I want to do what's happy for me. And the programming, the matrix, the external world wants to tell you stop being selfish. That's
Mm-hmm.
selfish. How dare you think about yourself? Well, you're not looking out for my best interest, so what else do I got? That my only option is me then. Too bad. Peace out. Don't tell me I'm not good enough. And then you trust that the reward will be figured out up here. And then you're like, next thing you know, you're the best thing in that sort of realm of passion and possibility.
Yeah.
But that vibration gets you excited, right? And it's like
Oh, absolutely.
I'd rather give another 15 hours of this sort of grind than that sort of grind. And
Because
this feels more rewarding.
absolutely, yeah. Anytime I've done something that is towards the greater good, or even just trying to help in general, it is always like just go do some volunteer work. Like there's nothing not meaningful about helping people, and that's kind of my goal with this podcast is just sharing my wisdom, helping other people share their wisdom as well, and all that stuff because life is really hard. You know, we're all in this together, and yeah,
That's beautiful. You don't know who's listening, and you may
we
never
really
know
don't.
who's listening. For example, I'm now stepping up my social media in anticipation of my book launch, and I've hired on a social media partner who's doing excellent work. Shout out to Alex. And we're taking a lot of the clips of me on podcasts and some speaking opportunities on stage already, and we're, nicely kind of packaging it and a big deal was to put it on LinkedIn because that LinkedIn world was my old world. And that old
Yeah.
world, while I have a lot of people who are nothing but supportive and wonderful, there are a lot of people in that world that just don't understand this and don't know what's going on and think I'm weird. And she's not going to get hired again going this trajectory. There's no way, because here she is, really changed and not speaking positively sometimes about these experiences that everyone can really like, oh yeah, that did happen to me at work. Yeah, it isn't really the best situation these days, but here I am now on LinkedIn, talking about I left my job, I left my career, I'm seeking a path of empowerment, like all these great wisdoms. And someone from the kingdom of Eswatini, I don't know if you've heard of this
Never heard.
country. I haven't. Yeah, and she reached out to me and we got on a call like 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. And I first of all I said, can you spell that? I've traveled the world. I've never heard of this. I'm sorry, forgive me for not knowing. And she goes, yeah, it's formerly Swaziland.
Oh,
Swaziland. So it's north of, I think, South Africa and that sort of region of Africa, the continent. And she heard me talk on LinkedIn and she was so inspired. She wanted to have a conversation just to tell me like the struggle she's gone through and how she's an entrepreneur now and how she's really changing her life for the better. And she's so proud of getting through, her own, handful of challenges that are unique to her and where she lives. And I was just like, look at this. I had no idea where this country was. I had no idea I made an impact. And here we are connecting in the heart right now. That's something we couldn't even do 15 years ago, right? Zoom wasn't around. And, a lot of people weren't getting on planes to see the world. And we're kind of isolated and kept conformed and controlled. And that's why this awakening is so beautiful. Everything's breaking down around us, this three-dimensional world that's not with the light. It's, based on a house of cards in some ways. And we're starting to see this now, crumble. It doesn't serve for the higher good. And so too bad, break down because you can't fix it. And here we are now rising up from a sense of consciousness, all interconnected and collected, and we're all like realizing like, yeah, I want better with my life, and I feel inspired and I'm listening and I know I could see myself in this person and vice versa. And now here I am with the baton going to pass it along to people in my sort of nexus. So yeah, this is important, even though it may not feel like you're getting the I guess, feedback in some ways, and we may never. But I think that's why Spirit's telling me to write these books and walk away from the system and just get it out there and trust it's going to find its way to the right people in an alignment. And that's your gift. And then, therefore, money is a return of an energy flow, right? The
Yeah.
interconnection.
Uh, yeah. So my I've been an introvert most of my life, so I trip up on my words a lot of times because I'm still getting used to interacting with people. This is definitely stepping outside of my comfort zone, but I love it. But my ego is definitely talks back, especially like after interviews. And it's like, you're gonna make a fool of yourself. Why are you doing this? Quit doing this. And I can just hear it nag. And then, so one thing I've been doing to combat that is, or to prove it wrong, is, for example, editing the episode really quickly so I can be like, oh, it's actually not as bad as I thought it was. Actually pretty decent. Or just watch it as it is before I edit it. And then, but anyways, I was watching the last one. At first, I was like, yeah, I can tell I'm nervous, but as the interview goes along, like I just feel in my heart space, like when my heart originally burst open, like I had that same type of feeling come through me, and it was like the only way I can describe it is it's like a nuclear reactor inside. And I was like, that was like confirmation, like, hey, hang in there, you're on the right track, keep doing what you're doing, it'll get better. So
Yeah. Yeah. So you tell that negative voice, so what? So
I
what?
do. I don't listen to them very
Yeah,
much.
so what? Who cares? According to who, right? And
Hmm.
why? So, two things I'd like to say to that. And bravo and kudos for you to pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and that's what growth really is ultimately. And it's done with love and excitement, and you continue to learn and grow and leverage, and you never know where it's going to take you. Just trust that it's going to work itself out. But yeah, two things to that. Oh goodness, now I forget my train of thought here.
That's okay.
We were talking about their comfort zone and
Hmm.
yeah, like kind of. Oh, it'll come back to me. I had two good points about that, and I forget.
I definitely get
Oh
it.
yeah, one thing I do. Oh, I do remember it now. First of all, one thing I wrote in my book is this concept of pronoia. Have you heard of that term?
Never.
Okay. I heard it, Duncan Trussell mentioned it one time on Joe Rogan. And ever since then, I'm like, this is my one of my favorite things. And I wrote it in the book because it was what I was learning with ayahuasca as well. So, pronoia means that the universe is looking out for your best interests, has your best interests at heart. It's working in your favor. So it's a belief, it's a trust. Whereas the word paranoia, which is the opposite of pronoia, means you think the universe is out to get you. You're paranoid. So if you shift your perspective, change the way you look at something, it's the same situation. It's just the way your lens is interpreting it, right? Negative lens or a positive lens, the rose-colored glasses or like the mucky colored glasses. And if you say, no, 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 pronoia, the universe is working in my best interest. It has my best interests at heart. I'm not paranoid, I'm pronoid. So that's kind of like a kill switch right there when you're getting those negative thoughts, like to try to keep you down and keep you conformed and confined and, bad juju energy. So you always want to think positively, even though you think you may sound like a nut. Everything's positive. The rosy colored glasses, nothing's bad. And then you hear those people, yeah, there's plenty of bad in the world. Yeah, of course there is. It's the polarity of the 3D. It's there to help people wake up and heal and grow and learn. We know bad's existing, but I choose to see everything in a positive lens, in a way that's my best interest, my best benefit. So paranoia, and crap, there was another thing I was going to say and I forgot. I'm losing my train of thought today. But yes, paranoia versus paranoia, I think, are very important principles to keep in mind, when that negative thought comes through.
Absolutely. And I think that, the darkness in the world, I think a lot of it's just, I mean, there's a lot of bad things. It's just, it's unconsciousness. Darkness to me is people living unconsciously, and the religions of the world think that they're in the light, but in reality, they're just playing pretend they're in the darkness. That's how I feel on that.
It's an absence of light.
Yeah.
It's the absence of light. So the mindlessness, the unconsciousness is an absence of your awareness of your power. And that's exactly what evil is. Evil is a dismissal of the light. It wants to be its own sort of um, empowered soul. And it's not even a soul. It's a void of energy. It's a void of light. So light is the only thing that doesn't cast a shadow on itself. But the darkness it's just essentially a shadow. It's a shadow of the light. It's some sort of barrier that's preventing the light to come through. But that's exactly what's happening right now. The light is busting through the seams and putting light onto darkness, so we could be conscious of it
Yeah.
and aware of it and call it out and say, that's not with the light. That's not aligned with my true sense of self, my true aligned, connection to source and my higher power. And so that's why it feels icky, because it's forcing you, again, like the medicine, it's forcing you to look in the mirror. Look at this now. Be aware. Wake up. Time to learn, time to grow, time to acknowledge it and then say that's not for me and that's not going to be okay for the greater good. That's I think what's happening, this collective awakening
Yeah.
is light is shining on things now that need to be expunged and sanitized by the light.
Yeah. The shadow, the collective shadow work, whether anybody wants to do it or not, like it's happening
It's
on a
happening.
large scale.
That's right. I wanted to go back to a thought you had about this negative voice. I remember the second point now. Anxiety speaks in questions, and intuition speaks in statements. So when you feel that, like, I'm questioning, I'm worried, that's anxiety. That's not truth.
Right.
That's just the negative voice, like trying to derail you because it wants to. It wants to pull your energy. That's what the shadow does. It's like a narcissistic energy. It takes. It can't create because it's not connected to creator. We are a connection to creator. We are a fractalized vessel of the infinite consciousness, having its own unique experience through you, through me, through others. And so when you cut your cord and cut your connection to creation, creator, the light, you're devoid of creation. And so therefore it manifests in ways where it steals, it manipulates, it's narcissistic energy, right? It harms, right? Because it wants your power. Because it's stealing. And it's like, when someone robs something from you, it's like, dude, you took this from me. Like, because you can't do it yourself, but you have to take. So that's cheating. That's a shitty way of being. But you know what? I forgive you anyway, because I know you need to learn and grow for yourself. And maybe you took it for reasons, but you're still taking because you don't realize your own empowerment to do it yourself. And so that's what evil is. That's what the shadow is. It's lack of an awareness of creative power. And so they just take and they cheat and they shortcut. And so that's what this is about now. It's like no more. I'm putting boundaries up, and I know my worth, and I know my sovereignty, and you're just not gonna. This is not gonna fly with me.
Yeah, when you, that's why it's so much easier once you've experienced the connection to source to be able to believe it. But the majority of people don't believe that we're like, I see, I see us as like projections of God. And if we all were able to see that, then anything we do to another person, we're actually doing to ourselves. And that's a difficult thing to wrap our minds around. But, this collective shadow work may help us get a little closer to that. So,
Yeah,
you know, the,
you're right.
the ego definitely works to keep you isolated. And in my own personal journey, a lot of times I just don't listen to it. Like, I'm still here. I'm doing the interview, and we got a lot more interviews planned, so I'm not listening to it, but I just, I sit with it. I sit with it because I made a lot of progress on my journey, but this was one of the things that I just didn't know was there. But then I started, speaking to strangers, and all of a sudden, all this stuff, some more identity stuff decided to come up, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's time to deal with that. So,
I I talk about the ego in my book, and we in the three-dimensional realm, we are separate. It's an illusion of separateness, right? We're all different, we're all detached. We don't know what source is, and it's not our job to convince people. It's their own journey to find, to rediscover who they are. We come in with amnesia, and
mm-hmm,
that's the whole hero's journey, is to say, "Oh, that's the story. I get
mm-hmm,
it." And that's why you need adversity challenge and other sort of things to help kind of guide you to that awakening. But that's not for me, you, or anyone to tell you, you have to believe this. No, no, no. Okay, you go on your merry way, and hopefully you can find your way. But here's some, inspiration as you do it along the way. But yeah, like I think the ego, we are in an illusion of separateness in this three-dimensional world. The ego is important because it's the balance between predeterminism and free will. And we, as these human vessels, we are gifted with free will. But at the same time, things are unfolding in such a way that's beyond our control and almost like pre-written, predetermined. So the balance is the two. And I go into my book and I talk about this, how the ego that is kind of on overdrive, or kind of really going off the deep end, that's where the real conflicts start to happen, I think, because you're no longer in a state of reciprocity or abundance or collectivism, and kind of working together for the greater good. You're taking it on as me. I'm better than you. I win, you lose. This sort of zero sum game. And that's where conflicts really start, I think, because the ego is unchecked. But the ego is important because it also gives you a sense of like duty, a sense of identity, right? In the sense of like, well, my predetermined sort of soul contract, or my soul sort of mission, is to be, in your case, maybe a podcaster, and get the word out and help to just, share knowledge with others, and with guests. And so you do need an ego to say, I identify as a podcaster. I like this. This is fun. I'm using my free will to decide to do this, to get up every day, to book client, to book, guests, send a Zoom link, get ready. The ego is all driving that because it's identifying as its own sort of creation. Look at me, I'm doing it. So that's a good thing. Ego gets a bad rap sometimes, but an unchecked ego, when it's going off the rails, now you're causing problems, right?
yeah.
Now you're harming others. Now you're taking more and, not sharing and caring, I suppose.
I had a dream one day, which was really cool. It was I was trying to get to some destination in my dream, and walking there was pretty slow. But somebody stopped who had a car, and it was kind of a beat up Honda Civic car, and they said that they would give me a ride. And so we get going, and the guy decided to stop at, I think he was fishing or something like that, at this pond. And I was like, dude, I need to get where I need to go. Like, let's go. And he's like, no. I was like, okay, fine. I'll drive. He's like, okay, okay, we'll go. Anyways, how I interpreted that afterwards was that guy was my ego. He had the car, so I needed him to get where I was trying to go, but he was easily sidetracked on the journey, you know.
I love that. Dreams bring you into the astral realm. And I just heard something recently. I follow a lot of channelers and these people that,
Mm.
impart their knowledge. And again, have discernment. Not everything everyone says on the internet is true, but what relates and resonates with you. And so that resonated. What this person was saying is that, your dreams, your spirit goes back into the astral realm and actually has meetings with your guides and other sort of higher dimensional, cheerleaders and champions and helping you guide yourself in this, vessel you're in when you wake back up. And so maybe that's what it was. You were having a conference meeting and getting some,
Absolutely could be.
insights. It very well could be. You can meditate on that. And, then that's where the real spiritual work begins is how do I now interpret, integrate, how to trust the wisdom that comes, what to download, what feels like, okay, I got that marching order. Now that I recognize that quote voice, and that's the spiritual practice right there. The more you do it, the more you're aware of it, the more you work with it, the more you start to really like understand your true powers and let them come online.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, most of my work is definitely questioning things. So I don't take the first answer that my mind gives. I've been writing a lot more, which I found a lot of joy in, and that's another way I'm able to sift through the dirt to try to get to the gold, see what's actually real, what's worth listening to, and what is not.
Beautiful. And that's what caused me to write my books. I've been journaling over the 20 plus years I've been traveling. And, you'd see me in the airplane not watching a movie, especially those long flights to, let's say,
Yeah.
Australia. I did not have a movie on at all. I always had the flight map because I love maps. I'm always out looking out the window because I love the window seat. And I have my tray down and I'm writing
Wow.
everything that had happened. So that got my writing muscles and my memory muscles, really sharp. And so when I was in the rainforest and this 5 week adventure I was on, I was naturally just writing everything down, taking videos and the like. So I was ready. I was prepared to be ready at this point, prepared to be lucky. So once I hit that brick wall and said I'm writing a book, it was easy because I had already written it in the journal. So yeah, I mean, you never know where that journaling will take you. It may materialize into a book for all you know.
It's pretty powerful. Like when I would be working, a lot of times I'll have just information coming in, and I don't think that this is for sure coming from me, but I'm like, I'll take a mental note of this, like, oh, I want to make a, TikTok or whatever clip out of this or something like that, and or an idea for a show. It just comes so quick that if you don't do anything with it, it just goes away. I guess it probably goes on to somebody else to do something with it. But writing has slowed that down to where I can actually hold on to those things, and it's pretty cool.
Good, you're training the muscle, the memory
Yeah.
muscle. Yeah, don't musicians say the same thing? Like, oh, I heard the music. It just
Yeah.
came from the muse, right? And the muse comes for writing too. Yeah, that's why it's important to continue, exercising that muscle, which is what the program and the matrix want you not to do. All this AI stuff is trying to, screw with your ability to think for yourself. And that includes writing, right? That includes writing. People are like, oh, I'm just going to put in the prompt and let it. And now I just am so grossed out on social media because you could tell everything's AI generated.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ugh, I don't even know like what you're trying to tell me anymore because I'm so distracted by it's not this, it's that. Or like the M dashes, and it's just like, oh my God, stop. Like I have no idea what you're trying to say anymore because it's not coming from the heart. And I'm guilty of it too because, as I mentioned, my social media partner, we're putting it through a system, my writing from the book, and we're kind of processing it quickly, and I constantly vetoing it. I'm like, no, no, it doesn't sound like me. And then I let some of it go, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't. It's a disassociated Sarah. I don't like it. It feels inauthentic, and all the while, it's removing that. It's atrophying that muscle of writing.
Yeah.
I think
You
it's doing. They're doing it on purpose.
you can definitely tell, like, AI definitely has its own style, and it's pretty easy to pick up on. Like when we first start reading something, it's like, oh, that's cool, and then something I can't think of what it is, but something something in there is pretty
It
signature.
doesn't feel right. It's your intuition speaking, saying this doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah.
It's not a true essence. And that's ultimately what this awakening is. And so everything is meant to serve. As much as it may seem awful, it's meant to serve a purpose. And in this case, I think it's just the everyday person now going, wait a minute, this doesn't feel authentic. I want to be authentic. And that's the split that's happening right now. It's the artificial to nature split, the two worlds that are splitting, cosmically and I guess the frequency bands and spiritually. People either want to go down that transhumanism artificial route, control matrix route. They'll continue to divulge that way, and then there's others that are saying no. I demand better. I want better. I want to feel better. I want to feel real. And that's why I'm in the rosy glasses. Like things are going to be awesome. I know it doesn't
Yeah.
look like it right now, but it is already awesome in so many ways if we just learn to train to see it and turn the shit off. That's most likely fake in some ways, right? With AI now, like you don't know what to believe anymore. And the media's given propaganda garbage too, and it's just like, okay, I don't know what to
That's too
trust
much.
anymore. It's too much. It's making our nervous system go haywire. And that's exactly what they're trying to do is to like detach us from source and our intuition.
Yeah, and transhumanism, trying to get it to where we no longer think for ourselves. AI is doing all of our thinking for us. And if we're projections of God, God is being suppressed, and God is like, no, I want to create. Like this is not okay. So all right, let's wake everybody up. Like,
Ooh, wake up. Hello. It's like you're sleeping literally in a nice room that has the shades down. It's all dark. And God's like, time to wake up, like your mother does to get you on the school bus. Okay, let's turn these shades up. Come on, here we go. Wake up now. Got some breakfast for you. It's a great day today. Like that's what God's doing. It's like, crap, I gotta go to school. What the heck, man? No, but the sun's out. Come on, the birds are singing. Let's go. Enough of this dark shit. And that's what it is. Like once we see past the darkness and we heal, because healing is very important still,
that's
and we
that's a
know who
huge
we
part of it.
are, we can see the beauty. Like, oh my God, it's amazing. And that's what they're trying to suppress is we are our own creators. We are so much more powerful than we were led to believe. And that's not our fault. We were born into this system, but we're here to break it down. We're the change makers now. Too bad you lost. That world lost. Accept defeat.
Yeah, it is pretty exciting. I will say
It
that.
is exciting.
I can definitely see a lot of, like with the war going on and all that stuff. People are tired of war. People are tired of unnecessary killing and corruption and everything else. And I'm not saying we weren't tired of it before, but it's just like when you have everything you need, there's not too many things going on in your life that are disrupting it, in your immediate vicinity or whatever. It's just like, what can you do? But now it's going crazy right now. So
Yeah. It's a wake up and a shake up. That's what it is. And some souls have incarnated in such a way that they need a mass shakeup. Others, kind of gradually have been shook awake. In my case, have been shook awake for a long time. And that's the thing. Like, that's why we love these stories of the hero, because you have to be the hero of your own life. No one can do it for you. No one can hold your hand. Because if you do give your power away to another person, even because okay, so the system is disempowering you, and we've been conditioned to like just obey and, you know, trust authorities, trust the media, trust science, trust all this other shit that doesn't feel right from within. And then we say, okay, fine, I'm not going to trust any of that, but I'm also going to now trust a guru, right? Because it's the same stupid thing. You're just shifting your trust externally elsewhere. You gotta learn within. And so sometimes, you know, some souls, not everybody, but some incarnated for a big shake up and wake up. It's that song "Rage Against the Machine" from The Matrix. I write about this in my book. It's called "Wake Up," and Zach De La Rocha goes, "What's it gonna take to wake you up, to shake you up, to break the structure up?" And he was singing that back, what, 20 plus years ago. 1999, The Matrix came out. And that was the song at the end of the rolling credits. It's such a great song. And you could feel the energy. He didn't write that with AI. Think about it, right? Tom Morello and Zach De La Rocha, they didn't write those songs with AI. They're like, come on! And like the whole crowd's like, yeah! Like that's the connection, right? Wake up! Shake up! Break the structures down that aren't serving, right?
And yeah, like you said, we're infinitely powerful, but
Mm-hmm.
and this is again another problem with religions is, oh, all these bad things that are happening to me are, the devil or whatever, and I can't really do anything about it, so I'm just gonna pray that everything gets better, but you don't actually do anything, and you just shift your power to the devil. Like the devil is infinitely powerful because we, as God incarnate, empower the devil, have absolute control over our lives.
That's fear. So fear is the opposite of love, right? That's fear. The devil is an illusion of fear. It wants you to be scared. And that's the real empowerment. It's like, hi, I'm not fucking scared. Bye. I'm not, because I'm connected to source. That's the answer. Right? Like fear is the opposite of love. Love is the opposite of fear. Love is the highest vibrational energy there is in the infinite dimensional realm, which is God. God is love. God is authenticity and love. That's it. So if you know how to connect with your light and vibe, and you've cleaned from healing from within, you're unstoppable. And so the devil's selling you a lie and fear. And anything that's in that sort of realm of fear is evil. It's the absence of light. It's trying to trick and manipulate and lie and scare and be like, so you got to take the New Yorker and you like me and say, fuck off. I'm not
Yeah.
listening. Too bad. Fuck you. I'm not listening. I'm going to give you a big hug and say, too bad for you that you're not with the light. Bye. Bye. That's the attitude we need now. That's it. That's the attitude. We need to be like, fuck off. I'm not doing it. Bye.
the
Have a nice
original,
day.
the
Love and
original.
light.
I definitely have
That's
a
why
look.
memes are winning on the internet. Think about it, right? There was a meme I saw like uh, these two kids and like a father. It's sort of like Edward Hopper esque, like kind of painting from the 40s. And he's sitting with a pipe, and the kids are sitting on the floor. And his dad, what was World War III like for you? How'd you show up? And he goes, I monitored the situation with memes. And then the kid's like, fucking legend. So that's what I mean. Or like, for example, like everyone's like doing a sob story now with that guy from North Korea. And he's like, oh, I'm so sad. No one invited me to the missile party. Like that's how we win. We combat the world, as scary and as disgusting, as awful as what's going on right now. You win with love. You win with like turning and saying, I'm not playing this game. This is stupid. Bye. Let's go over here and laugh. Let's put our weapons down and hug it out. And I know that sounds pie in the sky, Pollyannish, but that's it. Let's connect. Let's see that there's a common thread here, that we all want to be inspired and empowered, and we don't want to put up with this shit. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely, being from Arkansas, I definitely have a lot of Christianity background. Like, but the original fuck off was from Jesus when he was telling his disciples that he was about to endure suffering and be crucified and all that stuff. And Peter came up to him and said, Lord, we won't let this happen to you. And blah, blah, blah. And he's like, get behind thee, Satan, for you do not know the things. You only know of things of the earth and not of the things of God. So that was like his ego telling him, hey, don't worry, it's all going to be okay. But
Beautiful, powerful. I mean, he was an ascended master embodied in a human vessel, and he still look at the ripple effect he still has today. It's incredible. I grew up Catholic, a culturally Catholic, as I like to say, and I learned. I guess we had like religion school on Saturdays, and my teaching was like crayons and coloring books and stuff like that, and then sitting in the pews and listening to the gospel and stuff, and none of it made any sense to me at all as a kid. I was like, none of this makes sense. It doesn't read like a book. I don't understand what's going on. Going through the motions just to get confirmed and whatever communion and all that. And it was only until I was in Jordan, the country of Jordan, in the early 2000s, when I was there for a wedding. And my friend's brother, so the groom, his brother was sitting next to me at the rehearsal dinner the night before. And he's Muslim, and he was telling me that Jesus was real. And I said, no, he wasn't. He's just a made up character. I don't know. What is that crap? I don't know. He goes, no, no, no. He's real. He was real. It's just that they got it wrong in the Bible. And by the way, he's one of the main prophets in the Muslim faith, too. I said, he is? I didn't know that. So, I think only at that point, I'm like, oh, okay, and Yeshua, right? He was named Yeshua. So, but honestly, like, I met Jesus through ayahuasca. I met God through ayahuasca, and my spirituality has amped up significantly as a result of the plant medicine work and the shamanic work. And that's the other thing that religion's gonna want to tell you is like, oh, these shamans are demonic. They're summoning
everything's
demons
demonic.
and entities and all this other shit. And you're like, you clearly don't know what you're talking about because you have to experience it for yourself. And this is nothing but love and connection to Mother Earth and Gaia and protected lineage wisdoms because they were persecuted by the missionaries and the conquistadors and everything else that religion wants to suppress because it doesn't fit the narrative that is contrived in some ways. So the psychedelics in a lot of ways do open your horizons when done with reverence, when done in a protective vessel, when done I think in a way that embodies love and connection to earth and the higher consciousnesses. Like, yeah, like it does wake you up and shake you up and help you want you to break the structure up. And the structure is how you define it, whether it's institutions of religion or institutions of education or the healthcare system or the government or the banking system, which I was in. So, everyone is seeing it from a prism perspective. It's like, okay, this is what I remember, and this is now what I'm seeing with embodied knowledge in new lens. And this is why I call bullshit, and this is where I'm like, okay, this is where there's some truth here. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing that Jesus story because I now today can appreciate it as opposed to even 10 years ago. I'll be like, here we go with the Bible again. But no, I get it, and he's right. And he was a way shower. He showed a way. He embodied higher consciousness and the light, and he did it in such a way that was so harrowing that we still talk about it today.
Yeah, you have to. There's so many different ways to read it, but yeah, I definitely read the Bible a lot differently, and you got to sift through the stuff because I'm pretty well versed in most of the religions, and the Bible to me is like here's this ascended master trying to teach the way, trying to teach truths that to the egos around him, and then all these religions get created from that. Whereas like the Bhagavad Gita from the Hindu tradition is like it's a conversation between Arjuna and Krishna, Arjuna and God, and Arjuna trusts Krishna and what he's saying. So it's like the Bible, you got to sift through all the stuff to figure out what Jesus is actually saying. But And the Bhagavad Gita, it's this really thin book, but it just he's like, okay, this is the way it is. So
Yeah, there's some truth in all different religions, isn't there?
it's just when we let our egos run wild and try to create religion from this, we screw it up. And okay, maybe the texts are inspired by God's word, but then it's filtered, or the words are or maybe the teachings are inspired by God's word, but then they're filtered through ego minds, and then whole belief systems are created from that, and it no longer becomes God's word anymore. It's man's word. And that's why I say,
Sounds like AI.
yeah,
My AI example is being funneled through a system that's not connected to the heart anymore, and it disassociates, it loses its truth, its authenticity.
yeah. And so we create these belief systems, and we end up creating God in our own image, not what it actually is. Whereas God created us in his image or her image, however you want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And the word worship, I always saw it as a negative. It's like, oh, I gotta worship. Oh, let me bow down. Oh, dear, the higher power. Ah, you're gonna harm me, right? Because that's what religion sometimes wants to scare you into thinking. You're gonna get harmed. You gotta go to confession. You're all the sins. You're gonna go to hell, right? Listen, obey. It's the same sort of narrative. Comply, obey. Be in order. Be complicit. Uh, but in this case, you're like God is within. I'm the light. I'm a manifestation of Creator.
yeah.
And
Er,
instead of worshiping, I appreciate. I'm grateful. This is amazing. Wow. So I kind of like loosen the definition of worship in that sense now. Like, thanks. This is so great. Amazing. Not, oh my God, I'm so scared. I'm on my hands and knees, like cowering. No. There's no thunderbolts coming down and killing me because I like ate meat on, Friday during Lent. Come on. you know, Worship in my kind of now, as I said, exploration is gratitude. Like, thanks. I'm so happy I get this opportunity. Thank you. It's so cool.
loosening of the grip on the ego, and you reminded me of something. Going to hell. There was a Christian told a Buddhist monk that if you don't repent and confess Jesus as your Lord and Savior, that you're going to die and go to hell. And the monk said, I'd much rather go to hell because I can help way more people there.
Interesting. See, he looked at it from another perspective. And that's when you read my book, and I'm in ceremony 7, and I feel like I'm going to a mental institution. I literally do. I wrote the whole thing down. I talked to a video camera after, so it's accurate. And I still remember it. And I felt as I'm shaking this epileptic seizure, I felt like I was having and sweating and profusely. And I kept saying, the CIA's outside the Maloka and they're coming to get me. And oh no. And then I was like, they're going to throw me in Bellevue, which is a mental institution in New York City. And then after they throw me in Bellevue, when I get home from Peru, they're gonna throw me in prison. Oh no! I was like freaking out, like in this like prison of my own making in some way. It was really cleansing the traumas, is really what it was doing. But in that moment, to that point, I then looked at it differently. I said, okay, well, if I'm in prison, which sounds like it's going to happen, which why, I don't know, but in that state, it was definite. They're throwing me up in prison upstate New York. All right, so I could handle it. Yeah, it's fine. I could, make friends and find a way to like get by and, work with it. And that's the same thing. The book, have you read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
I have,
No, I would recommend it if you're looking for a really good book. It's like one of the top books you'll read in the world. He wrote it while he was in the concentration camp, and he was a psychiatrist, I believe, or psychologist at that was his profession. And so he wrote the book from his vantage point in prison, and then when he, spoiler alert, he gets out, and then he writes the second half after. But that's essentially what it is too. Like you are what you make of it. And that's what this is too. In this three-dimensional realm, is we're in a psychological prison, right?
Yeah.
We're being psychologically controlled and not realizing our true power. So you can make lemonade out of lemons, or however that
Start
saying goes.
start from wherever you are at. Like that's your work.
That's
And
right. And if you're in prison, like this, or in the Buddhist monks example, hell, shine your light. That's what light workers are here to do. We're incarnating now at this time to just be a beacon of light
yeah.
and just be there and light the darkness and say, okay, I'm here. How does that somehow like fix the energy around us? How does it is the 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 baton in the relay race and track meet. So yeah, like if you're in prison, thank you for this opportunity. As much as that's shitty, like how do I help people in the authentic light that I am? How do I heal myself? Why am I here? What am I trying to learn from this? And am I trying to reform myself? Am I trying to practice forgiveness to myself, forgiveness to the system, forgiveness to those I may have harmed? um, yeah, and how can I, from that standpoint, in my own sort of growth, maybe there's someone next to me in the prison cell who's like, oh, thank you for helping me get through this too, and it's the ripple effect.
I can definitely see that being a place where because there's likely a lot of dark energy in those types of places where yeah, just you can do a lot of good. So yeah, no matter what your past was and what led you to where you are, wake up where you are. It's the perfect
Yeah,
place to do it. Not in a
yeah,
cave and just meditating forever, but exactly where you are. Even if you're in the middle of New York City, the city that never sleeps, and uh,
yeah. You hold the light, and your impact is still felt to this day. It very well can be, because there could be that person I worked with or client, and where I showed up in a way that wasn't your typical banker, and it was like, oh wow, I appreciate that, thank you. You're actually, helping, brought some light to the situation. And yeah, you always like that teacher that always, like, you always remember, it's because we're always in the now, so we're going to call
yeah,
down things that we need the guidance for now, and say, oh yeah, that's how I remember how they made me feel. And that's what they teach in speaking too. Like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? And
yeah,
so people aren't listening to my words, they're seeing me, and they feel the emotion. It's almost like a performance in some ways, and they could resonate. So yeah, it's how do you make people feel? And that's your heart. That's not your brain. It's your heart. So the heart is really the wisdom center. And that's what you're talking about, the nuclear break out, be your light, right? Walk down the street in New York. I did that one time. I remember this. See how I'm remembering things uh, for when they're relevant. So my friend was having a party. We were celebrating something. I think he had a few brain surgery. Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. And I think we were celebrating his brain surgery. I forget. It was something big. It was some bar on St. Mark's Place downtown. Real cool area, that like street, and some bar, and I decided I was gonna get balloons. And I went to some place, I don't know, for Midtown or wherever, and I like bought a whole thing of balloons. And I'm walking down. I decided I wasn't gonna take a taxi. I wasn't taking the subway, so I'm just gonna walk. I think it was like 40th Street, and I walked down Second Avenue with all these balloons, all the way down to St. Mark's Place, which is like I think past like it's 11th Street area in the Lower East Side, or the Village, East Village. And like I literally walked around next to balloons. Like I'm sure someone to this day remembers that. Like this is pre cell phones, but or Facebook or anything. But yeah, like that was the energy of like happiness. Like here she is in New York. Like the hell are you doing?
This must be crazy.
Going to a party. Right? So I'm sure that I was emoting good feeling and good energy, and some random person, if you're listening, hello, uh, saw me and said, that's hysterical. Or they're, had a bad day. Oh, look at those balloons. So yeah, how you show up in life. And that's the role of a light worker. That's the role of someone embodying, the higher consciousness, and the sense of knowing, the authenticity, the sense of self, and refusal to conform and go back. I'm not going back to that. No way. I busted free, right?
And not viewing the world as always trying to be out to get you. And today I like to go out into the world, like if I go get groceries or something, with no expectations, just empty. And I let the world surprise me. And a lot of times it does. And have a nice little conversation with the cashier or somebody in line or something, and get a good laugh. And it's pretty awesome if you look at the world that way. Like, or anybody you work with, or somebody, any moment in your life, you have an opportunity to be a lot for that person, even if it's just smiling at them. You never know what anybody's going through. We're all going through stuff. But yes, it doesn't. The only thing that being spiritual requires is become present wherever you are, no matter where you are. So
Absolutely. Yeah, even if you're in prison or on the street of Manhattan,
yeah,
it's where you are. Be here now and be appreciative of the now and know that anything can happen next. That's why you want to look at it from a positive lens. Things are going to work out in my best interest. I know it. I guarantee it because I'm co creating with the creator.
yeah. And like you said, the like you were saying that intuition, your guiding voice is going to give you exactly what you need when you need it. Doesn't
That's
give you
right.
any more or any less. Just what you need.
And not before. Because if they gave it to you before, you wouldn't know you needed it at that point. It's my favorite. One of my favorite quotes is "Chance favors the prepared mind." Right? You got to be ready to be lucky. You got to be ready for that moment where it gave you, okay, now I'm ready for this. you know?
That reminds me of the seven P's. It's like piss poor planning. I can't remember the rest of them. Creates piss poor performance or something like that. I can't remember what the other one is. Uh, but
And then you got to give it to God and let it happen.
yeah, and
So you
that's
can plan all you want. You can plan all you want, and then what does Mike Tyson say? You get till you get punched in the face.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
you were saying?
I was just saying that giving it to God and surrender and all that stuff is not as straightforward as it sounds.
It's hard.
It's something that each of us has to figure out on our own, and nobody else can tell us. But once you figure it out, because eventually you will, eventually you have enough moments of your life falling apart. You realize, hey, I mean, this is my story. Like I'm like I can't like anything I do. Like I'm just getting in my own way. Like here, it's yours. Guide me. I don't know what to do.
Give God a job right now. That's what one of my spiritual teachers
yeah.
tells me. Give him a job. It's not my pay grade.
yeah.
You figure it out. I don't know. Help me. Like and if you frame it that way, it feels very like relatable. Like it's an
yeah.
everyday thing, instead of like the way I guess we've maybe been taught to think. It's like, you can help me. Thanks. I'll check in with you tomorrow. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Don't let the day worry about itself. Um,
Yeah. You gotta trust the unfolding, let it unfold. And my book talks about that too, about the motion. I see this in ceremony one. And it's this massive mass that just continues to unfold and churn and grow. And you see your timelines in it and the dimensionality. And yeah, it's so much more beyond our limited five sense perspectives, five senses. And we know that the spectrum of light, right? This ambient light that we have, the visible light spectrum is minute compared to the spectrum of wave of light, X-rays and gamma rays and all that other things. So, and then you realize like bugs and cats can see things that you can't because they can access a different frequency band of light. And then, once you astral travel and you get into the dimensions with the help of the medicines and other sort of modalities like meditation and breath work and other sort of things, connection to nature, um, near death experiences, all that, you realize, oh my God, there's so much more beyond my, senses. We were walking around blind. And then once you see that, you're like, okay, there's no way I can control this. I can't. And there's no way. It's just too big. It's too immense. It's too powerful. It's too loving. I'm like, okay, now don't be easy on me. Like, don't give me anything shitty. I want to enjoy this. Like, yeah. So that's why you say I want to see it from a positive lens. I want to align with the frequency of that band of the field and say, I manifest this. This is what is my best interest in the greater good. And I don't want to sit in that shit, the muck, the underground where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live with their pizza, which is a euphemism, maybe. I don't know. But, why do I gotta live in the fucking, sewers? Ugh, that's low vibration. That's muck. I don't want that. I want to be in the sun. I want to be at the top of a
Yes.
mountain. I want to be with the birds. I want to swim with the dolphins. I want to live life and feel and be joyous and create whatever I want and not be beholden to the system and that tells me and orders me around and keeps me enslaved and disempowered and harmed. Why do I gotta comply to you? You're not my mom. You're not my boss. I mean, well, you are the boss. I don't want you to be my boss. You're not God. You're not my spirit guides. You're not in charge of me. I am in charge of me. Thank you very much.
Well, do you want to wrap it up? We've been going for
Sure.
about an
This
hour
is
and 20.
great. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for having me,
Me
Cody.
too. I'm glad you came. I'd love to have you back on.
Okay, when the book comes out, I'll show it to you. I'll talk more about if you have any questions, and we'll get into some more detail. But I think it's the best first person account of an ayahuasca experience you're gonna find in a book, and I say
Awesome.
that with pure confidence. It's awesome. It's an amazing book. Well, the feedback I've been getting so far is like, oh my God, this is so great. And I'm like, I know, right? And I channeled it, I journaled it. It's 100% real story.
do you do you have a general idea of when it might be coming out?
I'm self-publishing, so I make that choice. But I feel like it's going to be like May, June into September is when it'll come
Okay.
out. So it's in layout right now. It's already fully
Mhm.
edited. I already recorded the audiobook up in
Oh, cool.
Vermont. Shout out to Voiceover Vermont, the audiobook experience. So yeah, I was during a massive snowstorm, so that the East Coast is getting pummeled in
Yeah.
January, the ice storms and stuff. Yeah, I was up in Vermont recording. It was, and the synchronicities were out of control, like how, where I was in Vermont and the storyline of the book. It's all, we could talk about it when we could reconvene. But yeah, so the audiobook's already edited. Everything's ready to rock and roll. It's just I got to keep, a few last things I want to get done, the website, all that. So, and then it's launch time, which is gonna be amazing.
Awesome.
I'm so excited. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love this book.
I can't wait. So
Thank you.
where can the listeners find you?
Embolden Adventures. So my emboldenadventures.com website right now is my placeholder. It's my old website, but you could also find me sararoccisano.com, SARAROCCISANO.com. That's my speaker website. And then on social media, LinkedIn, but yes, there will be a relaunch of the website, and then you could see everything I have in store, such as retreats, travel, merchandise, lots of different ways to read the book, and a Be Emboldened program that I'm developing. So that's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Unifying Field. If this type of content resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to share your story as a guest or discuss a spiritual topic you are passionate about, please message me on one of the many platforms I am on at the Unifying Field. And I will end this by saying Namaste, which means the divine